Far Cry is one of my favorite FPS franchises, and I know it's a favorite for a lot of you as well. So, with Far Cry 6 right around the corner, I think it's time to search the internet and compile everything that's been released about Far Cry 6. Let's keep the hype train chugging. Welcome to ChaosGaming, everybody. Let me know if you're excited for this one, and let's get going. Far Cry 6 announced back in July of 2020. Wasn't that long ago, actually, which, it was pretty surprising given where the world was at the time. This was in the heat of the lockdown, so most of us weren't expecting a massive game announcement like this. Now, according to the early promo material, the game takes place on a fictional island called Yara, which is located in the Caribbean. The basic setup is the island is ruled by a fascist dictator named Anton Castillo, and you're playing as a local guerrilla soldier trying to fight against him. Now, a central conflict of the story is going to be the relationship between the dictator and his son, who is unsure of whether he should follow in his father's footsteps and join the revolution, or should he go up against him? Anton Castillo is also being portrayed by Mr. Esposito himself, who you may know as Gus from Breaking Bad, and Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian. The player character will be somewhat customizable, kind of like in Far Cry 5. Now, it's currently unclear if they will be a mostly silent protagonist, but from the early promo material, it's kind of the vibe I'm getting, which I have mixed feelings about. Ubisoft has said in interviews that the player character will have a voice, but it's unclear just how vocal they will be during the story. Will they be taking a whole lot, or will they just be saying a handful of things throughout the story? And how much control will the player actually have over what they say? Mostly silent custom protagonists can be really good for allowing the player to insert themselves into the story. But then again, an established and well-written character in an open world, that can be extremely effective, like in Far Cry 2 and 3. I guess we're going to have to wait and see how the aspect turns out. The game's music is being composed by Pedro Bromfman, who did the music for Narcos, Max Payne 3, Elite Squad, and many, many more. Now let's talk about the world. It is heavily inspired by Cuba, and according to the devs, it's the biggest Far Cry sandbox today, which is saying something. The revolution is heavily inspired by the Cuban Revolution of the 1950s, but it's going to be obviously tweaked to be set in modern times. Ubisoft has already described the game as a tropical paradise frozen in time. So in this universe, the island of Yara has been surrounded by economic blockades for decades, meaning much of the technology and vehicles will be somewhat vintage, whereas the weaponry will be more modern, as they've been smuggled in by both the rebellion and the dictatorship. As for gameplay, the Guns for Hire system from Far Cry 5 will be returning, which allows you to hire teammates to come into battle with you. Now, going back to the map size, Ubisoft has said Far Cry 6 is going to be the biggest map in franchise history. For those that don't know, the biggest map in the series was actually Far Cry 2, which was clocked in at a whopping 31 square miles just for the land section. That's massive. So Far Cry 6, it's safe to say, is going to be gigantic. Now, there's a popular fan theory that the dictator's son is actually a younger version of Voss. If you don't know who Voss is, the iconic villain for Far Cry 3, one of the best video game villains we've ever received. Now, nothing is confirmed right now, but there are a lot of similarities between the two characters, right down to the eerily similar scar they have on their eye. Now, not too long ago, Voss's original voice actor teased during a Reddit AMA that he would be returning to the role in the coming years, but he didn't elaborate on where or when. Now, however, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in this theory, honestly. Far Cry 6 is set during modern day, but so was Far Cry 3. So unless Ubisoft is prepared to do some massive gymnastics to bend the timeline, I seriously doubt these two are the same character. As awesome as it would be, and as much as I hope I'm wrong, I just don't really see that theory coming to light. Now let's talk about platforms. What platforms, right? Well, that's where things get a little weird. According to Ubisoft, Far Cry 6 is going to drop on the Xbox One, the Xbox Series X, the PS4, the PS5, the PC, the Stadia, you heard me right, the Stadia, and Amazon Luna. Okay, that's a lot of systems, and with a game this big, that's the kind of thing that can cause issues. A handful of recent games like Cyberpunk and Black Ops Cold War have had serious performance issues on the older systems, while the newer gen versions, they suffered, albeit to a lesser degree. So when you're making a big game like this for so many platforms, it's never easy because the final product has to be optimized for every single one of them, which obviously takes dev time away from other things. And then there's a big gap, massive gap in hardware between the base Xbox One and the new Xbox Series X. You can probably imagine the struggle that occurs there. Look at Cyberpunk. I mean, case in point. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but this is the first cross-gen Far Cry game in franchise history, and I'm really hoping that it doesn't present any major issues on the technical front. An exact release date is not yet set in stone, but Ubisoft has confirmed that the game will be released before the end of September 21. So it's only a few months away. We're going to get through summer, and it's going to be here. So my question for you is, are you excited? Are you going to spend your money on Far Cry 6? And which platform are you going to play it on? The Amazon Luna? You guys let me know, and I'll see you soon.